Red turkey wheat. Sounds good for Thanksgiving coming up. This is the New Riff Distilling Red Turkey Wheat Bourbon, which continues New Riff's exploration of using heirloom grains, this time with wheated bourbon. Now, first released in 2021, New Riff has made this a wider release, making it more broadly available here in 2025. Is this one of those, if you know bourbons? Trust me, you're gonna wanna know about this one. Stay right here, it's the Mash and Drum. What's up, folks? I'm Jason C from the Mash and Drum, and welcome back to the show. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and as always, thank you so much for all the great feedback and support. So, departing from New Riff's usual high rye bourbon mash bill, they instead use red turkey wheat, which is an heirloom variety grown in the American Midwest. Not bred for yield, but more so for flavor. It's actually a grain that dates all the way back to the 19th century that supposedly brings a softer, sweeter profile. All right, let's dive right in and let's get a pour here. Now, overall, this bourbon is aged for 5 years. It's bottled in bond without chill filtration, so non-chill filtered. It's bottled at 100 proof, of course. The mash bill here is 70% corn, 25% red turkey wheat, and 5% malted barley, rounds it all out. Price for this one, $59.99. Now, a quick correction, it's aged at least 5 years, so at least 5 years, which means there could be some older whiskey in here. What I love about this is the color. It's a pretty dark color for a bourbon that could be maybe majority of it 5 years old, but it's got a nice dark color, and it's got some great legs to the whiskey, especially on the glass here. So let's dive in and see what we got here. So the nose here is, I'm not going to say grain forward. I do get the wheat, but I think people think grain forward and they automatically think it's kind of crafty and super young. That's not how it's coming across. It's actually coming across where you can really smell the wheat grain in here. But what you do end up with is a really nice dark fruit note. New Riff sometimes gives me like a nice cherry note. I feel like there's a bright cherry, maybe borderline strawberry type of note here on the nose. Definitely citrus. I feel like you get a little honey. I mean, it's all flavor here. I'm not really picking up any really the 100 proof, no alcohol. You know, none of that is really making itself to be known, but I do think like the nose on here is really, really nice. It's balanced, it's sweet. It's exactly what you would want in a wheated bourbon, so let's give it a try. Cheers. My favorite part of this is the texture. Love the texture of this whiskey. For 100 proof, I do think it has a very impressive texture overall. It sticks to the sides of your tongue. I do think that that cherry note that I usually pick up with New Riff is coming through. Love the dark fruit notes in here. There's some nice spice as well. I really do think even for a wheated bourbon, there's a level of spiciness that you get, a little bit of a baking spice. Not so much a black pepper spice, but I mean more of a baking spice type note. Yeah, I'm almost picking up, it's not so much orange, it's more of like a tangerine. There's just something a little bit more elevated on the citrus front on here that's kind of mixing with the dark fruit, really some great oak. I feel like I'm getting that baking spice, like I said, more so on like the clove, maybe even little hint of nutmeg side. I don't know if I'm really getting cinnamon. I'm definitely picking up a little bit of clove, but I just love the sweetness here. It's got such a nice balance, and it does have a little bit of a sneaky long finish for a 100 proofer. This is a great release from New Riff. I feel like people are gonna see red turkey wheat, and maybe they won't exactly pay attention to it too much, but I think this is probably one of the more under the radar bottles. I think that's gonna, I mean, this just released not that long ago. So if these are laying around, this is a really nice wheated bourbon that I think that could go against any of them, any of the big players. I'm talking Weller, Maker's Mark, Larceny, maybe not Larceny barrel proof, but any of the lower proof wheaters that are out there. I think this can go right there with it. Yeah, it's a dangerous sipper because not only is it sweet, it's dense at the same time, even at 100 proof. The mouthfeel, the texture, everything just kind of wraps up into one really impressive pour for 60 bucks. At a time where everybody is putting out all these $200, $250 heavily allocated bottles, there you go, New Riff just dropping this little $60 bottle that's actually really impressive for what you get. I think this is a home run. I mean, we'll do kind of a quick final breakdown. You guys probably know what I'm gonna say, but overall, this is really great. Let's see if we have a question of the day. All right, so today's question today comes from Michael Bortner, QK4ZL, I think that says. He says, great review, cannot wait to crack mine, but then he says, hashtag question of the day, what was the first bottle you felt you had to bunker or back it up? And this is a good question. I really had to think about what was the first bottle that I flipped out over. You know, Booker started my love of bourbon, but I don't feel like I ever really had to go, you know, run out and back one up. Aside from Country Ham was the exception with the Bookers. Obviously, there have been some Wild Turkey bottles, some Master's Keeps that I felt like I had to back up. But believe it or not, the first bottle that I ever tried that I had to have another bottle of it and had to put it on the shelf and back it up somewhere, surprisingly, was the Michter's Barrel Proof Toasted Rye. And that may surprise you because you guys know I'm not like the biggest toasted fan, but when I had that for the first time, it was unlike anything I had had at that time. So to me, that bottle was the first one I had to, I mean, that bottle was really hard to find even at that time. So, and I think it was 2018, 2019, something like that. That was the first bottle where I flipped out. I'm like, oh my God, I need to get multiples of these as soon as I can. So yeah, thinking about it, that was the first bottle I ever really had to back up. So there you go. Great question. And if you have a question of the day, make sure you leave it down below in the comments. All right, final breakdown on the new Riff. All right, final breakdown on the new Riff Red Turkey Wheat. Price for this one, $59.99, so call it 60 bucks. When we look at resale market value, haven't really seen these, which is probably a good thing. Hopefully this review doesn't change that. When it comes to availability, there is a broader release for this one. I'm not sure how broad it's gonna go, but if you get new Riff in your area, wherever you live, chances are you'll probably be able to find one. However, for availability's sake, I'll say, because new Riff isn't everywhere quite yet, I'll say it's gonna be below average. For value, I'm gonna say above average. I think I like this for the price point. It's got great flavor, great balance, and I think you can get it for a better price than what most people pay or overpay for other wheated bourbons. Most I pay here, I think I would still stick with retail. I think 60 bucks is right where it should be. I do think it's a you know, an above average value, but it doesn't mean I'd be willing to overpay for it. But I do think for the money, you're getting a great bottle. So for the most I pay, I'd still stay at 60 bucks. Alternatives to this one, I mean, you have some other great wheaters out there that are in this relative price point. You have Maker's Mark, which I think Maker's Mark is a little bit more wheat forward than this is. This kind of brings you more into the fruit, into the into a little bit more of the concentrated flavors, the balance that I really like in a wheated bourbon, and gives you a little bit of that spice. So for that, I think this might lean more towards like what the Ben Holiday soft red winter wheat does, especially at barrel proof, and even the Penelope bourbon, which I think is about $40. And one last one, I would say the Bardstown Bourbon Company High Wheat is also another option for this. I think those are all around 60 bucks. So with that, those are gonna be your best alternatives. And lastly, is it a skip, a try before you buy, a buy, or buy and back it up? I think this is definitely good enough for a buy. For all you wheated fans out there, this might be one you want to back it up. I'm not the biggest wheater fan in the world, but I do think for this one, I feel like it's good enough for a buy because it gives me bold flavors that you don't always find in a wheated bourbon unless it's a higher age. So this being at least 5 years old and bringing the balance and bringing the mouthfeel, the texture, and all the flavors in between, I think it's super impressive, and I think it's worth a pickup. This is gonna be one of those sneaky bottles that I think people are gonna sleep on, but once they get it and they pour it, they let it open up a little bit, I think you're gonna be really, really pleased with it, especially if you're a wheated bourbon fan. All right, guys, hope you enjoyed this review for the new Riff Red Turkey Wheat for 2025. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did, hit that subscribe button below. Please hit the like button. If you haven't yet, follow me on Instagram. Let me know down in the comments what you think about this one, what your thoughts are on Red Turkey Wheat. Is this one you're on the lookout for? Am I behind the curve here? Are you guys already been enjoying this one? Because I'm just reviewing it now. Let me know down in the comments. And as I always say, it's not about the whiskey, it's the people you share it with. Cheers. I'll see you next time right here on The Master and Drum. Here we go. Gobble, gobble.